and good day. Mike Adcock with an update on Tropical Storm Humberto in the far eastern Atlantic. This brief is based on the 9 Zulu National Hurricane Center advisory from the 9th of September. Taking a look at that position from the National Hurricane Center, this places Humberto about 230 kilometers southeast of the southernmost Cape Verde Islands. The winds are up to 35 knots, gusting to 45, and is moving west or just a little north of due west at 10 knots, 1,005 for the pressure. Do have some tropical storm warnings in effect for the southern Cape Verde Islands as Humberto tracks relatively close. You can see here on the multispectral imagery quite a bit of flaring up in the convection. At 9 Zulu National Hurricane Center did upgrade this to a tropical storm, and that is based on satellite imagery. Just looking at the cloud tops, now looking at temperatures of below minus 80 Celsius, so looking for those thunderstorms extending far up into the atmosphere. We're starting to see more convection a little closer to the center of circulation, which is an indication of a developing system. And then looking at the DVORAK analyses, both out of TAFB and SAB of T2.5, which is about 35 knots. And on the objective advanced DVORAK technique, that yielded a T2.4, 34 knots. So pretty much on point with what the National Hurricane Center is seeing. Another thing to point out is the outflow. You can see quite a bit of this upper level cirrus, this kind of those bluer shades here on the south, extending quite well. You don't really see that up north. You see a little bit to the northwest of the Cape Verde, but not nearly as widespread as on the south side, and that's due to some northeasterly shear to the north of the Cape Verde Islands. Here is the National Hurricane Center surface analysis. This was from 0 Zulu, so this still called it a tropical depression at that time, but now it is a tropical storm moving off again just north of due west at about 280 degrees. Still associated with the monsoon trough, and it should pull itself away from that. The biggest factor that we're going to monitor is this area of low pressure over Spain. The models are suggesting it's going to retrograde and pull off to the southwest, helping to erode this very strong Azores high that dominates the majority of the Atlantic Ocean. The more it pulls southwestward, the more it erodes this area of higher pressure, the more this system will pull off to the north and remove itself from the monsoon trough. Quickly do want to point out this is the other tropical wave we've been tracking over the past few days. Here's the remnants of Gabrielle to the northeast of the Bahamas. Alright, so here is the National Hurricane Center track forecast. Near term, moving it to the west. Then by Wednesday we should start to see the effects of that area of low pressure in Spain dig southwestward. Should start to pull it pretty rapidly to the north. About that same time we should see this storm become a hurricane, and then again by Friday evening, Saturday early morning. Right now expecting Humberto to start shifting back to the west. A couple things of note here. Now this is the now the 8th tropical storm of the season. Actually, if you're looking at the raw numbers of just tropical storms, we still remain above average. Normally we get to the 8th named storm about the 20th of September, so still about a week and a half or so ahead of average. Normally by September 9th we should only have seen about 6 named storms, so still within one standard deviation, but a little bit above normal. The unique thing about this season, though, is the lack of hurricanes. Normally we get our first hurricane by the 29th of July. Matter of fact, we should see the second hurricane usually about the 23rd of August, and then the third hurricane about the 7th of September. So already about 3 hurricanes behind. And what's interesting with this forecast is the record, actually, this was set back in 2002, I believe, with Hurricane Gustav. It became the latest hurricane, or latest hurricane to form in a season on September 11th. Well, looking at the National Hurricane Center forecast, Wednesday, September 11th, that's when we're expecting this to become a hurricane. Actually, should see it possibly late on the 10th, depending on what you're looking at. Zulu time right now looking at about 0Z on the 11th, this becoming a hurricane, which would barely beat out 2002 for the latest hurricane. This is basically the same track. This is produced by Fleet Weather Center Norfolk, and the key thing here is what we're looking at, the wind radii with this storm. You can see the reasoning for the tropical storm warning as this area of 35 knot winds do clip the southern Cape Verde Islands. Now again, the biggest question though is going to be, how strong is this low over the Iberian Peninsula? How much does it retrograde to the southwest, and in turn how much does it erode this strong Azores high? Right now, for the most part, much of the models are pretty much on point in terms of the track. Initially for the next day, should continue moving off basically to the west-northwest. And then we should start to see the effects of that low moving through. That's going to take us to about the 96-hour point. Very sharp north turn. By that point, we should see the ridge rebuild, and that would start to shift Humberto off to the west again, which, again, nearly all the models are showing that. You'll see this black line here is the official National Hurricane Center forecast, and actually they are a little more westerly than a bulk of the models. A lot of them take a more due north and a lot further north and east than the official National Hurricane Center forecast. So we'll see how it actually pans out. This is important because it has a direct correlation to the intensity forecast. The further north the system goes, the more it's going to embattle shear, the more it's going to run into cooler waters, and in turn, the less it's going to strengthen. In turn, or on the other hand, rather, if that system isn't all that strong, if it doesn't retrograde that much, if the high continues to block it, this storm may end up being a little bit more westerly. Not likely, given how many models are in agreement here. I mean, really the only one that's going out west is this climatology and persistence model. So, but if that were the case, it would keep it over warmer waters, less shear, so in turn it should strengthen. So, by and large, the intensity forecast, it's some low confidence. Right now it's dealing with shear, and you saw that on that multispectral image. Dealing with about 12 knots of shear. Not too bad, but it's modest nonetheless. It is forecast to weaken as it continues to move off to that west-northwest direction. Amazingly, far eastern Atlantic, we're not dealing with the dry Saharan air, so that's not going to be an issue. The waters are warm, about 28 degrees or so, so that's not going to be an issue. So we should get some near-term strengthening. Looking at the models, specifically the GFS and the European model, they actually develop it quite nicely. You get a nice upper level outdraft. So, in theory, we should see a hurricane. Right now, the National Hurricane Center forecast pretty much in the center here. Do have a few of them that just maintain it as a tropical storm, but the majority of the models take it to at least hurricane strength. Really nothing more than Category 1. Do have a couple outliers that take it on up, but we should see our first real run at a hurricane. We'll see. Again, the National Hurricane Center is saying this forecast is actually on the conservative side. Yeah. Anyway, it should start strengthening given the current atmosphere, given the current water, given the shear is going to be decreasing. What we're going to have to look at is here about the 72-hour point. We should start to see some weakening, and that's really with the cooler waters and actually a little bit of increasing shear at this point by the days 4 and 5. Here's the DVORAK analysis. TAFB and SAB both again saying about 2.5, and that's the data T. What you're looking at there is a 5/10 banding on the log-10 spiral, and pattern in the model expected also calling it 2.5. So looking at barely a tropical storm here. Water temperatures, as I said, pretty typical for the eastern Atlantic. You do have the cooler waters coming off the north. Right here is your 28-degree isotherm, and that's just north of the Cape Verde Islands. So again, if this area of high pressure strengthens or keeps from eroding, the system would stay on more of a westerly track, and any more west it goes, the longer it stays in warmer water. The quicker it turns off to the north, you're going to start running into this sub 26-degree water here. So something that we'll have to keep in mind. Here's our shear analysis. Do have quite a bit of shear off to the north. Again, this initial westerly motion should buy us time to develop the system before it moves north and into the shear. Current conditions over in the Cape Verde Islands right now, dealing with some moderate rain with all that convection blowing up over Humberto. Winds are out of the northeast at 19 knots sustained. Pressure down to 1,008.9 and falling. Do want to point out they've already picked up about an inch of rain there in the Cape Verdes, or the southern Cape Verdes with this system. And just looking at continued rainfall. Of course, keep posted to your local meteorological agency for any additional storm information, including storm warnings. This pretty much concludes the brief for Humberto today. Going to continue to see the updates. Should be getting the next advisory from the National Hurricane Center at about 12 Zulu. You can, of course, join in on the tropical discussion at storm2k.org. You can follow me at Twitter as well, at Senior Pepper. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day and take care.